Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 10 of the CMU Sport Management Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Sandel, and today I am joined by Evrim Kahyaoglu, coordinator of Reservations and Event Services with University of Maryland. How are you doing today, Evrim?
Doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We have some, it's February in Michigan, but we actually have some decent weather going on. It's like
Is
early
it
spring.
snowing
No,
still
we
or
haven't
no?
we haven't had snow in probably since the beginning of the new year. It's been like
Okay.
40s, low 50s for a while now.
Nice, nice. All right. Yeah.
How about you guys out on the East Coast?
It snowed a little. I think it snowed pretty bad a few weeks ago. But then it's been like up and down ever since then. Like there was a random day that it was 70, so it's just hit or miss right now. But right now it's like in the 40s.
Okay, yeah. So basically similar to what we have going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to once again thank you for joining this week's show. My advisor Jen Eaton reached out to me and said that you would be a great guest to have on the show. So how do you know Jen?
First of all, I'm honored to be on the show. Like I said, I've been watching the ones you've been doing with like Dr. Blue and Jen. We were in the same cohort actually in our master's program. So from 2020 to 2022, we were in the same cohort. So we got to get to know each other a little bit then and work on some projects together and kept in touch ever since here and there. And she reached out to me, and I was hoping to get that message actually because I know you started this. So I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. I'm happy that worked out. So usually I kind of like to start with like, what was the interest in coming to CMU? But I first just want to start off with your current position at University of Maryland. So what does your current position right now consist of? Like, what do you do on a daily basis, or your responsibilities in your current career?
Yeah, so it's actually very similar to what I did at CMU as a GA, but basically I handle all of the scheduling and reservations for our RecWell facilities in terms of student organizations that want to use any of our spaces, as well as the internal recreation department. So you have your fitness programming, intramurals and clubs programming, that type of thing. And then my boss I work with, she handles more of the external stuff, but essentially we're just scheduling all the reservations. We take in all the requests and we approve them based on different policies and processes. And I just started in November, so I'm just now getting comfortable with everything. But it's been great so far.
So how was the process of landing at your current position with Maryland? Because I saw that you finished up with the master's program at Central beforehand. And like you said, you just started in November. So how did you end up at Maryland?
Yeah, so to circle back a little bit, I left the master's, or I guess my GA ship, a semester early because one of my supervisors, he basically told me to start applying for jobs super early. And towards the end of 2021, end of the fall semester, I had an offer in Virginia actually, but also with the HEB Center down in Austin, Texas, as an event coordinator. So I took that role starting in 2022. I finished the master's online because we were still doing the hybrid, which I think you guys are still doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
um,
Some teachers are, not most.
yeah, yeah. So I basically worked for the whole calendar year there full time as an event coordinator while finishing my master's. Because I wanted to see what the pro sports world was like. As you saw, my experiences mostly in university recreational wellness, but I wanted to see what the pro sports world was like. And it had its ups and downs, and definitely learned a lot. But I just realized it wasn't for me, so I actually left. And then starting 2023, I was in between jobs and basically on the job search. So I was applying for jobs in recreational wellness throughout the Northeast region essentially. And luckily, this job opened up, I think, in the end of August. And UMD was always a destination for me. So I didn't want to get my hopes up, but I went through the interview process. I came on campus in my final interview, and then beginning of October, I got the offer, and then I started in November. So I've been there ever since. But basically, I was working full time, took basically a break, and then now I'm here. So I'm really happy to be here. And basically, what I want to tell everyone that's watching this or current undergrads is there's gonna be ups and downs, so it's not all just one linear path. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I ended up over here.
I think that's very important because, a lot of people can get discouraged really easily when things don't go their way, or they try something that they think that they really would have liked and then it
Yep.
ended up not working out. So I think that is very important to hear from someone that is in the industry currently giving out that advice. So speaking of that, talking about how you were mainly doing collegiate stuff and wanted to look at the pros, what were some like major differences, I guess, that you noticed in working in collegiates versus trying it out in professional?
It's a good question. I guess more so if you're working athletics, there's a little bit more similarities, but I was doing recreation where A lot of it isn't necessarily profit based, and you're really just working with the students for the students. Most college recreation departments, they're part of the student affairs division, so a lot of it is geared towards well-being for students on campus. Whereas the professional world, I technically work for a minor league hockey team, but we also did concerts and other events at the arena. So
Okay.
you're a little bit more not necessarily profit based, but you're working with different types of groups, different agents and like different types of representatives for different concerts and shows. So it's a lot more of executing events for the client. And obviously, I oversaw our guest services department. So you're also doing a little bit of that client relationship, customer service. But the biggest difference I would say is in college is you're serving the students, at least in recreation. And then in professionals, you're serving the client. And then athletics is kind of in between where you're kind of serving the athletics teams. So you're kind of getting a little bit of both.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty good description on how
Yeah.
they're separate there. So, looking back to where it all started, I saw that obviously you didn't do your undergrad at CMU. You were at Rutgers University out in New Jersey in marketing and international and global studies. So, how did you end up at Central Michigan then in the master's program for sport management? Is that something that you would have
Yeah.
always had interest in, or just kind of peaked out of nowhere?
And in all honesty, I didn't know Central Michigan what it was or that it was a school before I applied. I'm from New Jersey, so I'm used to the East Coast. Rutgers is only an hour from where I lived, and it was just between there and Delaware. So I was always
Okay.
looking at East Coast schools, and then starting my senior year, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Like most people in undergrad, I did marketing, but all really did was work at a restaurant over break. So I didn't do any internships or anything that a lot of my business school colleagues were doing. And I was just kind of not sure. But then I worked at the rec center at Rutgers in my undergrad and always loved working there. I was like a building supervisor, met a lot of people there, a lot of good friends. And someone basically told me that you can do it professionally. You can become a graduate assistant, get your master's paid for, and start in the recreation world and go on to work full time in it. So I talked to our student staff development director, and he walked me through how it worked. And then obviously when COVID hit in 2020, because I graduated in 2020.
Oh,
So
okay. A lot of people on
yeah,
this show are kind of in that same range. Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly. And so I had some opportunities. There were some internships I was applying for, graduate assistantships in various schools. I was ready to go like wherever, honestly, anywhere that was in reasonable distance. And then all the opportunities just went down the drain. So I was kind of stuck finishing my undergrad. But then in the summer, Central Michigan, they posted the job I had. It was event management and facility operations graduate assistant for the rec department. I think I was still in the summer class. I was finishing up and I applied for it around July and then interviewed. And then I think in August or end of July, my boss at the time, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want to offer you the position." And I was like, so it was really just my only offer. I'm not to be fully transparent.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I've never been there. I don't know what anything's like. And I was like, you know what? Let's go to Michigan. So I packed up my car with my girlfriend at the time and drove down end of August. So basically, I finished starting my graduate program. So it looked like a good campus. It was a really good recreation team and department. It's NERSA is like the National Recreation Association. They were pretty involved in NERSA and in the Michigan region. So I said, why not? And then, yeah, that's kind of how I technically missed the deadline for the sport management program, but they were able to make an exception for me just because it was such a
Oh,
last
okay.
minute thing. Yeah, so that's how I got started. And in hindsight, I'm really glad that it worked out that way. I met so many great people. I'm sure we'll touch upon it. I don't know if your past guests, they've talked about, the people that you interact with there. So
Right.
that's how I got started. Yeah. So, and I also wanted to do something different. So it was kind of cool I got like the big school experience at Rutgers, and then at Central, I feel like I kind of got that smaller school experience, which is good. I think it's good to experience both.
Yeah, I mean, CMU is definitely a one of the smaller Division I schools out there, especially just
Yeah.
in a not in a big because even a good amount of small D1 schools are in, bigger cities. Mount Pleasant, Michigan is definitely not a big city by
Right.
any means. So,
It was a little
um,
bit of a culture shock when I first got there, for
so
sure.
you said you had never been to Michigan before?
No, no, I knew Michigan and Michigan State, and that's all
Right.
I knew. And then I was looking at jobs or positions wherever, and Central posted the job. I had some of the experience needed. I was interested in the facility operations side of things, and yeah, I'm now a Chippewa, so it all worked out.
Fire up. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, fire up.
So
Yeah, I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, "Is that like a real thing, or is that just like a joke that people do?"
yeah, it's a pretty big thing for sure. So you talked about like when you were at Central, you worked in facility operations as a GA and event management. So what were some like key experiences that you got at your time at Central as a GA?
Yeah, so there was a lot of good experiences, both like hands-on with my GA-ship and also with the sport management program. The first year was definitely more facility operations focused because with COVID, we couldn't really do anything. The gym wasn't even
Fair,
open
yeah.
for students. Yeah, so it was a lot of like, I created like the maintenance program for our fitness equipment. You know, I was able to hire some staff and do that more of the facility operations side of things, help out my boss with all of our supervisors, and then after the first year coming back the next fall we were able to open back up and do events again, so I started learning more about the event management side of things, where we got requests from student, like I said, student organizations would request spaces. I would work with them on coordinating that, payments, contracts, that type of thing. um, and then also the program, you know, our program was a little bit limited with the service hours because there really wasn't anything going on. So the internship hours were reduced. The event management class that you guys take, I think you take it in undergrad and grad,
Hmm.
um, where you have to do like event hours, was reduced by a lot. So we did a lot of working around what we could. We did everything we possibly could do with the COVID, and with the sports world, it's a lot of hands-on in-person stuff. And obviously, you know, like the COVID affected it so much. So
Right.
I think with the limited resources and opportunities we did have, we were able to do a lot and work a lot with our program, our professors, our advisors, and you know, I was able to get a lot of good experience, especially with the different people I was working with, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a couple past guests had talked about how they were kind of in the grad program during COVID as well, and
Yeah,
they kind of mentioned the same things as you. Like it's very difficult because sports is the most in person, fan
yeah,
atmosphere kind of situation, and event management in general is so. But everyone kind of mentioned the same things. Like everyone kind of just realized we're gonna be in this together, and we're all gonna get through it. And I'm happy that it
yeah.
all worked out for everybody for sure.
Right. It kind of forced us to like be very close together. So I made a lot of good friends in that cohort, and I still keep in touch with a lot of them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely I get a lot of that same feedback. So looking back at moving on from CMU, I looked at your other experiences that you have on LinkedIn, and I saw the fan experience and sponsorship internship with Real Central New Jersey Soccer. So talk me through that. Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, so like I said, at the time, I was thinking more that I wanted to get back into the sports or get into the sports world. I know for our program, we had to do an internship over the summer. So I was looking at internships with like, I always wanted to do like some type of guest experience or like working with guests and fans. And I was kind of looking back home so I could just stay home for the summer. But I went back to Jersey, and Real Central New Jersey, it's like a USL2 team. So like college players, like super
Right.
minor, as minor league as you can get. But the fan experience and like event person there was full time, and he gave me like a phone interview. We talked about what I wanted to do, what my goals were career wise at the time, and you know, he thought I would be a good fit. So basically, I would help with some of the sales side of things, where I did some research on potential sponsors or potential clients that we could work with for the team in the Mercer County area. It's basically like Central Jersey.
Okay.
A little bit of a hot topic is Central Jersey existing or not, which I don't know if anyone watching will know. But yeah, it's as central as you could get. And so game days, it would be a lot of like your usual setting up with like tents and like seating. And we played at a community college. So there was a lot of like signs that we would put in and stuff like that. But I worked a lot with like ticketing. So like we had a ticketing booth where we would sell tickets and do a lot of the fan experience type of things, where I help with like groups that would come for halftime and kind of escorting them and taking them around and working with them and that type of thing. So it was a good combination of on-site stuff, but also doing stuff, remotely. But it was a good experience for sure. And ultimately, I didn't go into that world. I did pick it because I like soccer. I like watching soccer. I like playing. I follow it. So I thought, why not work for a soccer team?
Okay.
So it was super cool to do that. Yeah, I thought I wanted to work in soccer professionally going forward at the time. So it was a good experience for me, but also kind of checked off that internship mark that we need for our program. And it was a really good experience for sure. And my supervisor there, he helped me a lot with my job search in the fall. So it was kind of like a double whammy. And I think, when people are looking for internships, again, be ready to take what you can get, but also like take the stuff that might be out of your comfort zone, because I never really had done like sports in that sense. So it was definitely an interesting experience, but something that has helped me get to where I am today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's another great piece of advice for sure. I mean, everyone that does sport management doesn't mean they have to end up working in sports, because a lot of people that are in the sport management program tied in with event management, and a lot of sports
Hmm.
facilities, they put on different events throughout the year and everything during off season. So yeah, I think that that's any experience that you can get is good experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of I feel like a lot of kids or people in the programs they end up doing like ticket sales. That's the
Yeah.
gist I got, especially with undergrads. So I know a lot of people think that's what if that's a route you want to go down, that's great. I knew that wasn't for me, but being open minded to event management, like you said, or sports facilities or sports operations or marketing and that type of thing. I think there's such a broad world with sports. Again, like you said, it can take you to different avenues, but it doesn't just have to be ticket sales. It can be a lot of different things, kind of whatever you think your strengths are. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, for sure. So now moving back to your current position in at University of Maryland, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but how does your day-to-day, like, life in your job vary as far as, like, is it a lot of the same, or does it change from month to month? Like, how does that work in your current career?
Definitely, it's a little bit of both. I think with the semester starting, especially like the past few weeks, it can get really busy, especially with working with student groups. A lot of them put in requests for beginning of the semester events. So with I think working for a university, and I'm sure my athletics people will definitely agree. It's you have your high seasons, you have your low seasons. So when I started, it was kind of mid semester, so I was able to kind of ease in and not have too much of a workload. Day to
Mhm.
day, it's pretty flexible. We a lot of people here they kind of like set their own hours. It's not a rigid 9 to 5 type of thing because
Right.
first of all, working in different areas, especially with like intramurals and stuff, you're working weird hours. You got to be flexible. But also for me, it's a little bit more structured. But basically, I come in and I check my email and check all the requests we get. Um, I have like a spreadsheet of our different event requests of where they are progress wise because there's certain steps you got to follow with our student organizations, our student affairs division. Like there's certain things you got to do. So it's a lot of it takes a lot of organization, a lot of attention to detail. So every day I'm trying to make sure, but also working with the different departments, it's about making sure everyone's on the same schedule. The scheduling system we do use, making sure that everything's up to date. Our supervisors know what's going on. And everyone's kind of on the same page. So you're kind of that middleman with everything that's going on in the recreation in terms of scheduling. So I really like it because I get to work with different people in our department, but also working with different student groups and like having their events in our facilities. It's always pretty satisfying to do that. I've already done a few, so
Okay.
um, I hope that kind of goes over. It's hard to describe sometimes. It's
Yeah,
like
I
I
get
said,
it.
it's you have your high and lows. Like this, it's been very busy recently with all the students coming back. Yeah, so every day, you can expect the same thing, but there's always stuff that comes up that you have to handle as it comes. Certain fires you got to put out, that type of thing. Especially with the events world, we had a sorority recruitment event a couple weeks ago where the big projector they needed for their whole thing wasn't working. We kind of had to troubleshoot and it was like an hour. I mean, it was the day before they started, but it was like, things you got to figure out day of sometimes.
Yeah,
So
on the fly. Yeah, I mean, and like you talked about, I assume as the semester continues to go on, it will, ease itself out a little bit. And do you think it'll get
exactly.
crazy
Yeah.
towards the end of the semester, like going into the summer, or is that something you still have yet to kind of learn?
Yeah, I'll definitely see how it goes here. With my
Yeah.
experience or what I know it's more busy towards the end of the summer because when students start coming back, that's when it starts
Right.
getting really busy, especially in the fall with the new year students coming in. I think with the spring, it helps that there's finals and people are graduating, so they're kind of more worried about that. Whereas in the beginning of the semester, especially fall, all these student groups, especially with the changes in leadership, a lot of them are doing stuff for the first time. So I'm trying to do my best to help them through what they're supposed to do, what it looks like, requesting space, that type of thing, because a lot of them haven't done it before. So that's what the beginning of semester can definitely bring. And I think the fall is going to be, from what I've heard, it's going to be crazier in the fall because then like the new students are starting as well. So
Right.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but also it's going to be a lot. So we'll see. Yeah.
It'll be nice going through it for the first time, and then you'll know what to expect from there on out. So you kind of talked about like scheduling.
Right.
It was is really important for you in your position. So organization obviously seems like a major skill needed for you. What are some of the other big time skills that so far in your position you've learned are much needed?
I think the biggest one is kind of being a people person, and what I mean by that is being able to talk to different types of people from different, walks of life. If that makes sense. I know with customer
Yeah,
service, that's kind of like a given. Yeah, and especially in my previous roles, working with different clients, different organizations, you're working with so many different types of people that you need to learn how to be understanding, be patient, and know that different people do different things, or different people do things differently. Excuse me.
right.
And it's just understanding like where people are at, trying to walk them through it, and you knowing what your resources are, knowing what you're good at. I think I'm pretty good at talking to people and like trying to get them to talk and seeing what they're good at. So I think the biggest thing is recognizing different people, how they work, how they talk, how they communicate, and just being ready to change your methodology based on who you're working with. I think that's obviously organization and detail, like you said, is very important because with all these different events going on, you have different tickers in your brain, like going off of like what's ready to go, what's this week, what's next week, what needs to be done in a few months. So I think utilizing your resources, but also just being a people person. If you want to get into the events world, the facilities world, you're going to be working with different people, different groups, different clients, and they like to do things differently. So being adaptable, definitely. So I think that's a part of it as well. So yeah, just be ready to deal with a bunch of different people and different challenges that come up with that. No one event's going to be the same as the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that most people can relate to that. So you've talked about like what you enjoy about your position and the skills that you think that you need in your position, and you kind of just got towards it at the end there. But what are some challenges that you have faced so far? It could just be not in your current career, just in life, working in event operations and facilities in general.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges is knowing that you have to kind of work on other people's time sometimes, especially when you work in a place with a lot of different people and a lot of different stakeholders. Else to do something, and especially my last role, working like sporting events and concerts, especially dealing with some, especially when there's alcohol involved. There was dealing with a lot of people going crazy as people are drinking and
Yeah,
stuff. So again, not really taking stuff personally because you're gonna get yelled at. You're gonna get people yelling at you, telling you you're dumb or you're not doing something right, or someone told them one thing, someone told them another thing. It's being able to take that and not take it personally and knowing when to step back. I think I do. My challenge is like I tend to like take the brunt of things too much when maybe sometimes I need to step back. Sometimes I do take stuff personally and think, oh, did I do something wrong or did I actually do something the right way? Blah blah blah. So I think just the biggest challenge can be like knowing when to step back, knowing when to basically balance everything out. Especially in the events world, I think you work a lot of weird hours. I would work like loadouts for sometimes, and that can definitely be tough. I know a lot of people that work in athletics can relate to that. I think it's just knowing that if it is something that you really want to do, like you're gonna have to put in those hours. You're gonna have to work long days. We had a week of graduations once in my last role where days for like a week straight, and that can take a lot on you, like mentally and physically. So, knowing when to take a break, when to step back, when you can utilize down seasons to take a break. I remember I took a vacation in like July, like for a month, because we had nothing going on because it was the summer in Texas, so everyone's outside. So I
yeah.
think just recognizing that the balance might not be short term, but over time, recognizing when to take breaks, when to step back from things, and just not take things personally as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've had, talked about on this show is making sure to keep your personal time personal because those long
Kyle.
hours is something that in events and athletics like is always going to be majorly impactful to your personal life. So you want to make sure to separate, your professional and personal life once you get in that world. So the last thing that I'll ask you is something that I'd like to end off the show with every guest, and that is, what is your biggest piece of advice to current students in the undergrad program at Central? You've already given a lot of good advice, so it can be repeated things. But what would you say is the most important piece of advice?
I would say, like I said in the beginning, and kind of what I did was be willing to take risk and be willing to try new things. I was someone that never was in the athletics or sports world, but thought, I want to just try it. Let me just try it. It might not work out perfectly. And, the only way to figure out what you truly want is to try different things and see what you don't want. So I think be willing to take risk. Trying different places. I wanted to move out of state. I wanted to move somewhere that wasn't back home and try new things. So I think taking risks, trying things, and utilizing the resources you have at CMU. I was able to work with the athletics department with our professors about getting experiences in athletics to kind of add to my resume. So know that you have a lot of resources, especially at CMU, with professors, and people are willing to help you out if you just ask a question or just shoot an email to somebody. I know my last two jobs, I got this good advice where if you're applying for a job or internship, find who your boss might be, find who your supervisor or someone that works the organization, and just shoot them an email saying, "Hey, I applied for the job through this, but I also wanted to give you shoot you an email with my credentials just in case. Hope you have a great day, blah, blah, blah." And just showing that extra step, that extra willingness to be like, "Hey, I really want this. Here's me trying," goes a long way. I remember my boss from my last job, I asked her, I think there was like 100+ applicants for my job. And I asked, "Was I the only one that emailed you directly?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm like,
Really?
yeah, it's crazy. It sounds so simple. Um, and it's not gonna make or break anything, but it's just showing them that you care and you're going that extra step. So be willing to step out of your comfort zone, do stuff like that, reach out to people. The worst they can do is ignore you. They're not gonna put you out into the world like, "Oh, look at this person, don't hire them." Like, just go for it. Just email whoever you can. Most organizations, you can guess their emails. It's usually the last name or
Yeah.
like the first initial last name. But also, utilizing the resources you already do have, your professors, Dr. Baloo, Dr. or Jenny, and now I think she's a professor as well.
Yep.
So the alumni network at CMU is actually is crazy. Like, you wouldn't realize it, but utilize your resources, be willing to take risks, be willing to try different things. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. I was tough on myself when I left my job thinking, "Oh, I did all this work and now I'm unemployed." But in the end, it worked out because I'm where I want to be. I thought I wasn't going to be here for another few years, but I guess life has a weird way of working things out. So just take risks, try different things. I wouldn't have my job now if it wasn't for the stuff I did before. So, yeah, I know I'm rambling on, but I would say that's
No,
the
I think that's
that's
perfect.
the
Like, I
biggest piece
really
of
do
advice.
like that piece of advice about, like showing that extra effort when you're applying for a job and stuff. Cause that's honestly something that I've never heard that piece of advice. And that
It's so
strikes me as
simple.
like
It
exactly
sounds so
like you don't
easy.
even think
Yeah.
about it though. So yeah,
A lot of
I like
organizations,
that.
they have the emails on the website. It's not even like you got to look for it.
Exactly. Yeah. You can just find it on Google or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I have for you, Evrim. Thanks again for joining this week's episode of the Sport Management Program. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone listening for this week's episode.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, I appreciate it too.